just introduce yourself one more time?
Sure. I'm Buff Burkel, Colonel retired, United States Air Force.
And so you have, I mean, it's a pretty shocking story. You survived a helicopter crash, and I guess give us some of the background again, just in case people missed it. Why were you there? What happened?
Sure. I was deployed on a 365, year deployment to Afghanistan, serving as an air advisor, and we had a really important meeting in Kabul the next day. And working at a FOB, we needed to get to Kabul the afternoon before to go to the meeting the next day. And so you take helicopter rides because it's not safe to drive. So my folks set that up for us, and I had 3 of my folks traveling with me. And so we got on board a British Puma Mark II, 5-minute travel from Kabul International Airport to the NATO headquarters, and it was fairly routine. Lots of people do it, traveling around. You don't, like I say, you don't drive on the ground because it can be dangerous. In fact, that day of our crash, there was a British convoy that did actually get hit with an IED and was blown up. So we got on board with 3 other NATO folks, 2 other NATO folks. There's 6 passengers and 3 crew members on board that British helicopter. And we went in to land on the soccer field over there at NATO headquarters. If anybody's been over to NATO in Kabul, it's a soccer field there, and there's over 10,000 landings a year. We went in to land, and there were people in the field. So our lead, we were number 2 of 2 helicopters. The lead said, hey, we need to go back around, try it again. As we did that, we struck the tether of a surveillance balloon, and it wasn't so much striking the tether, it's what the tether did to the helicopter that caused the damage that made it no longer flyable. So we rammed into the ground in the NATO compound. The pilots did everything they could, and in fact, one of them gave their life doing that. And so 5 people were killed, 2 crew members, 3 passengers, 2 of, again, who worked for me. And then those of us on the left-hand side, the 4 of us survived. In various stages of disrepair. It was crushed pretty badly. People ran out and started immediately doing rescue efforts. I actually don't remember any of it, still to this day, but between meeting some of the folks that are part of the story and reading the British report, I know exactly what happened, which is it's pretty amazing. All those things happened, but all the things that came together, that there's people alive, there's people, I mean, if it had hit the ground in a different part of the compound, all the people working there, it could have been a lot worse than it actually was. And so great rescue efforts. I got back, they helicoptered me back to Kabul International and up to Bagram, where I spent a night there, and then I was air back up to Longstool, where I spent 3.5 months recovering. I broke my neck. It's called a hangman's fracture, same injury that Christopher Reeve, if anybody remembers Superman, fell off his horse, broke his neck, same injury. But mine turned out a whole lot differently, thankfully. Yes. And so I spent the 3 months at Longstool. I wore a halo. So I'm a colonel who missed having screws loose in my head. We all know that most colonels do have screws loose in their heads. I'm one that actually admits it. But I will tell you the tightening of those screws was much nastier than any screws being loose. If anybody's ever worn braces and that first tightening of your braces, it's sort of like that, but imagine 6 screws in your skull. But that all did great work to give my broken vertebrae the opportunity to heal. It did, and I went back to Canada where I was stationed, and then moved to Scott Air Force Base, which is where I retired from. So I've gotten to meet people, part of my story, pretty powerful, meet someone that saved your life. Meet the person whose life you saved. Big shout out to our air medical evacuation folks that they do that all the time. People come on board their airplane, they do everything to keep them in good shape to get to launch or wherever they're offloaded, and then they really don't know the rest of the story. So I've actually gotten to meet some of those folks and show them the rest of the story, which is that's pretty cool. Those folks are amazing. I don't think I have the emotional courage to be an air medical evacuation person. So that's kind of a synopsis of the story.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible story. And you say the next part, it's the next part of the story. They got to see more of it. There's even more to your story that is continuing today, and we will get into that. You are part of the Wounded Warrior Project. Mm-hmm.
Air Force Wounded Warrior Program.
Right.
Yep.
And we will get into that. We're going to hear a little bit more information about that, why you do it.
Yep.
So stick around, folks. We're going to hear that. But next up, I got your live weather update and currency exchange. Don't go anywhere. There's no place like AFN because we get the opportunities to meet individuals who have gone through some of these life-changing things and get to hear their stories. So you went obviously through a traumatic event, but you came out on the other side, and the story's continuing. So
absolutely.
What are you doing with this part of the story?
So what I do with my story is I tell it to share about how important support is. And one aspect of that is the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program, which is, the acronym for that is AFW2, and it's the Air Force's own resilience program and really care program for ourselves. It's a division within AFPC, It's been around for a while, I don't remember how long, but even when I was in Germany and as I transitioned back to Canada where I was stationed and then down to Scott Air Force Base where I PCS to, the Wounded Warrior program was with me through all those different steps. And it's our program for Air Force for us, and it's not just people like me who are injured in Afghanistan. It covers military sexual trauma, suicide, complex illnesses like different types of cancers. There's airmen that were hit on a motorcycle, horrific injuries, traumatic brain injuries. I have a friend that she was the first female Thunderbird in the Air Force, and she was medically retired due to tick-borne illness. She tells you she has the other TBI, and she was on track to be a general and do some really big things in our Air Force, and she's doing some really big things by telling her story out in the civilian sector and sharing and raising awareness about tick-borne illness and how debilitating that can be and how tough it is for the medical community to really sort out that exists. And so she's part of the program too. And so first and foremost, it's not just about combat injuries. When we say wounded warrior, it isn't just somebody that was injured in Afghanistan. It can be somebody that was riding their motorcycle in CONUS and something happened. You know, it just really depends. And so the website, if you Google AFW2, you can see it. I encourage everybody to know where that is because you never know when someone might need that. You might need it. And it's not just about the wounded warrior. It's about caregivers. It's about support. It's about commanders, first sergeants. It's a tool for all of us to help take care of each other. And the chief is very, very, very all in on that. He's been all in on it for a long time. That's an important program to him. And so I'm here because he's highlighting their resiliency. And the Wounded Warrior program has ambassadors who are like me that we go through a training program to tell our stories, tie it back to the AFW2 program, and we can be requested. And so that's what happened here is the Air Force element said, hey, we'd like an ambassador come tell their story. So the AFW2 program reached out to me and said, hey, Buff, are you available? And I said, let me look at my calendar. I said, yeah, I'll come back to Korea, sure. And share my story and share a little bit of insight about the program. Because when I go and I give my presentation, my first question is how many people have heard of this program? And my goal is that I go and everybody knows what it is. And that is, we're not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I want us to be there. As a commander, I was a squadron commander, I had an airman who had a mental health problem. And I took decent care of him, but I took ignorant care of him. I didn't understand the whole medical evaluation board, PBLO, all these different acronyms that come into play when you're talking about medical stuff and medical evaluation boards and such. And so I took ignorant care of him. If I'd had this program that could have helped support me, supporting him as part of our Air Force family, I think I would have even taken better care of him than the unit did there while he was going through that. So it's a really good program for everybody, and every airman should know about it, and our joint partners should know about it too. And it's total force, so it doesn't matter whether you're active duty, guard, or reserves. And I think even civilians can be involved in it too. I'm by no means an expert on it, but I am a warrior myself and have been to some of the events. Adaptive sports is part of it, caregivers, because it's really tough. It's a long-term thing when you have someone that you're caring for. Transition programs, helping warriors understand and realize they have skills and that they can go do things outside of the Air Force when their time with the Air Force is complete and whatnot. So it's a really awesome program. Not very well known, but that's part of what my goal is to get out there and share it. And I'm happy to come out here to Korea and share that it exists, and it's a good thing. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it's a program for us to take care of each other, and that's really important.
Well, what do you say to folks who are aware of the program and maybe they work with someone who's wounded in ways that are seen or unseen?
I tell them to refer them. I've referred multiple people. I've pointed people to refer people to the program because you can call in, either be that person, their supervisor, or whoever, and the program will determine whether or not someone's eligible to be in it. And so it doesn't hurt if there's something going on to see if we can get them some support through the program.
All right. Well, we'll come back and we'll continue this conversation. So guys, stick around if you want to hear more, because we're not going anywhere. All right. Say Something from Justin Timberlake. You know, saying something sometimes is all it takes. We are actually talking during our music break here, and we were talking about something simple is just listening to people's stories, letting them have the opportunity to vent. Do you care to talk more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's, you know, my recovery, people listen to me talk about stuff that had happened as I was processing my feelings about it and all the different angles that go into it. And that's really that human connection of just listening to each other when we need to process stuff. Because a lot of times we just need to, can I just vent this out? And then once I vent it out, I'm like, okay, I can start to wrap my brain around what's going on and process it better. And tap into my personal resilience. Like I said, resilience is not an individual sport. I'm absolutely convinced of that. I have in the back of my business card that we don't get through life on our own. That you actually are very resilient, but what's inside of you, you can't get to on your own. We need each other to unlock that. And to listen and to enable that resilience to come forward so that we can tackle the tough stuff and celebrate the good. And doing it together is way better than trying to do it alone.
Yeah, it is very hard to take this world alone.
Absolutely.
Well, so let's wrap all this up. What are some of the key points that you want people to take home today?
The key points are we need to take care of each other. Life is richer because we're in it together. The Air Force Wounded Warrior Program is a resource for us to help each other out that not a lot of people know about, Googling AFW2, and the wonderful things that it can do in the toughest of times for people, caregivers, and even for people that are supporting the people going through that particularly tough time. It's a great program, and it's out there, it's available. And one of my goals is making sure as many people in our Air Force and beyond know about it as can be, and that being human is a pretty cool thing. It can be very tough, but it can also be very awesome. And there's times when we need to rely on each other to deal with the tough stuff and to celebrate the good, and to not forget that, and that life is not meant to be lived alone. And that how do we help people much earlier in things that are going on in life so that it doesn't become a crisis for them or they're making decisions that they can't undo. And how can we back up that and know that there's people around and helping each other carry those burdens day to day such that they don't become major crises that people can't get back from.
Those are all important things to take away. Thank you so much
you're welcome.
for giving us this opportunity to hear from you and hear your story.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think it's a great opportunity. Really eye-opening. Always.
Well, thanks for having me come hang out. It's always cool to hang out on the radio.
All right. Well, I hope that we get to do more opportunities like this. Hey, you're going to be here on the peninsula
Yep.
For a little while, and you're going to be speaking to people at other events, correct?
Yes, I'm going to be at the Air Force Elements Resiliency program tomorrow afternoon over in the UNC auditorium.
Right on.
Yep.
All right. Well, keep your eyes peeled for that, folks, and stick around because we do have more music coming to you right after the live weather update.